All right, Anae. I mean, listen, we've been talking about these showers and, the cooling down of the temperatures.
Right. Yeah, I know a lot of people are probably enjoying that. Definitely if you have a garden or any crops out there that need water, they're getting a lot of that, and we're going to continue to see that same pattern over the next week. Rain chances staying pretty high, especially on Tuesday, and then going towards the end of the week, we're expecting to see a lot of rainfall, likely going to be a washout several days next week. Don't have too many outdoor plans, but we're getting a relief from that summertime heat that we typically get in late July. It's going to be in the 80s, so it's going to feel pretty comfortable for at least for North Alabama standards. Pretty nice for the end of July.
Keep those umbrellas handy too.
Right.
All right, thank you so much, guys. WAAY 31 gives you 24/7 coverage you can count on. Don't go anywhere. WAAY 31 Law Call is next.
This is WAAY 31 Law Call.
Good evening and welcome to WAAY 31 Law Call. I'm Sharon Doviet. Tonight we're taking your calls and questions about car and truck wrecks. Everything from just little fender benders. Do you even have to tell your insurance company about those? Can you take care of it yourself and maybe keep your insurance rates from rising? Or is that some kind of violation and you really have to report them? To big catastrophic injuries, 18-wheelers, what the rules are for them, who's keeping track of them on the roads, things like the rest requirements for them, and how you'd even get evidence to prove that they were not taking the breaks they're supposed to. Call in your questions on any kind of questions, car and truck wrecks, the 31 Law Call number 256-536-0077. And remember, you can now text to that same question if you're a little shy about coming on the air, but we'd love to hear your live questions. You can also email a question on any legal topic any day of the week. You send it to lawcall@waytv.com, and when we get to a show that's on point, we pull some out. We've got some of those email questions coming up tonight. Will League's here.
Sharon, important topic. It's not important until it is to us.
Yeah, when it happens to you.
Right. My kids, they're paying on insurance now, and all of a sudden they come back, their car's dinged from in the parking lot. What do we do? Why are my insurance rates rising? All the way to car wrecks and 18-wheeler wrecks, which is a majority of actually what we try to juries in North Alabama.
Oh, they're bad. They're bad.
And so we'll talk about what it takes to get things into evidence. What, as you mentioned earlier, the reset or rest requirements for 18-wheelers, those are some of the most dangerous vehicles on the roadway. All of us are on the roadway at some point, and it's important to make sure that everybody's following the rules to make some of these 18-wheeler death cases not happen anymore, because we're seeing them all too often. I mean, they're switching to automated stuff, and there's some tired drivers out there.
I'll be curious to hear what you think about some of these automated trucks.
Right.
Does that make you feel better or worse?
Yeah, be brave. If you got a question, give us a shout, and we'll answer tonight anything regarding car and truck wreck cases. And in the second block, I got a shout out to some of my buddies.
We got some good pictures for you. So call in the 31 Law Call number 536-0077. You can call or text to that. Meanwhile, we've got some video to show you. So take a look. We like to give you the "You Make the Law Call" video. This is from another country. You can tell because the signs are a little strange. Okay, this accident. This is not a high-speed accident. If you swerve because of, see the white car on the right-hand side.
So
this guy has to swerve because of him. They don't even hit. The black car hit somebody else. Whose fault is this?
Okay, so it looks like the car on the right failed near the right-of-way, came out in front of the black car. So, but there was no contact between those vehicles. Let's say white car runs off. What do we do at that point?
Yeah.
All right, so under old case law, it looks like it's in a foreign country, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. The sign's
right?
weird.
So yeah, he pulled out, caused him to swerve, and then crashed into the other vehicle. Under the old case law, Sharon, you had to have some type of evidence of, was it a crash? Was there any parts of the automobile on the ground to prove that other vehicle came into your lane and caused this wreck? In the new law, as long as you've got substantial evidence to present to a jury, let's say eyewitness testimony, and even the driver of the black car could testify. In a lot of cases we see, you do see hit and runs quite a bit. It's scary how often it happens. In those cases, usually we'll have some type of evidence. Sometimes Good Samaritans stop and render aid, and that we use them as witnesses, any nearby cameras from any stores, viewing the area. And people often ask about, what about those cameras on the traffic lights? Well, those are counters, and we can't have access to those.
Oh, really?
So
you can't, that does nothing?
No, it's not. So it doesn't help you at all.
Okay.
And so under the new law, as long as you've got substantial testimony or evidence that can be presented to a jury,
good,
to their reasonable satisfaction, then that can show that vehicle caused that wreck. And it makes a difference. Why? Because if they go and you can't prove it, they flee the scene, then you got to make a claim on your insurance carrier. Your rates go up. How can you prove under the old standard. And so the
Yeah.
old standard made it difficult without any. It raised the bar on evidence, so at least now gives you a fighting chance. So that's one good thing Alabama law's
Like
done.
that one, if you didn't have the video, would you even believe? Yeah, sure,
Right.
you were swerving because of some other car. Sure you were. Yeah.
Right, and insurance companies seized on that. And remember, when we try these cases, usually, you hit me or I hit you. Sharon is making a claim against Will League. And it's really my insurance company that Sharon's making a claim against, but your attorney is not allowed to tell the jury that. And that's by design. To
If
not
we
be
try the
prejudiced.
case,
Correct.
they can't say, I'm going after you've got great insurance. I'm not
Right.
really trying to get his house
Right.
and his items. I'm going after insurance.
And the theory is
Can't
you don't
say
want
that.
the insurance company to be prejudiced, but again, it's a little bit disingenuous because they're thinking, oh, poor little Will made a mistake and now
Yeah.
he has to pay this judgment, and that's how the cases are tried. And so it's a little bit of sleight of hand by the insurance carriers, and then the defense attorneys take advantage of that in the law, and they should. That's their job to do that.
Okay, I teased at the top. Do you have to tell your insurance company every little accident you're in? So if it's a fender bender and you want to take care of it yourself and pay for it, and everybody's good with that, do you have to tell your insurance company?
Look in your policy. I don't
Okay.
think you do not. Most policies don't require that, but make sure to look at I get it. Nobody reads that entire policy, but it helps you to go through it and be familiar with some of the sections, because if you fail in the application, they can deny coverage, and it can be very expensive if you've done something wrong in the application and they void that insurance policy because you didn't, tell them about this accident, that accident, or whatever the precursors is to make a claim. And believe me, they will take advantage of any and all exclusions for coverage. That's what they do. And and Sharon, usually that's what we fuss about, is not only coverage, but the value. Let's say I run a red light, I hit you, you've got medical bills, you don't have health insurance, you've got to pay those. So it makes a huge difference if somebody hits you without insurance, is that recoverable? And so they matter, and bills can rise. All of a sudden you find yourself in financial debt, looking at bankruptcy, purely because the insurance carrier either denied your claim and you may or may not have had insurance yourself. So things get hairy pretty quick.
We've got a couple of email questions. We've got an email question from Sandra. Sandra wrote, I was rear-ended a few days ago. The other driver's insurance wants to settle my injury portion, quote, as soon as you're feeling better. I had hit my head quite sharply. I was dazed and in shock. The concussion's been uncomfortable, and the whiplash is now becoming worse. Do I need to seek legal counsel for this?
This is a typical scenario or presentation of a lot of the cases that we look at. Oftentimes people are in a wreck, they're dealing with their vehicle, they're trying to get to and from work, and they're trying to deal with a rental car, and they'll get a call from the other insurance carrier, usually making some type of offer to go ahead and resolve this portion of the claim. It's a lot of times it's good cop, bad cop. So you have them, if they can get there to you in the beginning before you know the value of your case, before you know what the nature and extent of your injuries are. So if all of a sudden, let's say this particular caller said, I had a sore neck, I had a headache, I went ahead and took this minimal offer.
I signed it. I took the deal.
Right, and you signed the release. Well, oftentimes injuries don't fully manifest themselves until later, until you have time to go to the physician, until you have time to get diagnostic scans, whether it be X-ray, CT scans, MRIs. And as we grow older, when you're younger and you take these kind of knocks, hey, you're sucking it up, you're going to get better. But as you age, things don't bounce back like they used to, Sharon. And so it takes some time we all know it takes time to get into the physician, whether it be an orthopedic. I mean, good luck trying to get a doctor the next day. And so it takes some time to get into the physician for them to set you up with either physical therapy, surgery, or scans, or whatever you need, unless it's an emergency situation.
So if you take a bad deal, can you come back later and say, Judge, clearly I took too little?
Right, and usually it's the young kids and rookies who've never been into it.
Okay.
And so they think, well, hey, let's just take this right now.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden something manifests later, they didn't realize it, and then we can't go back and defend that in court. The insurance company's done, and that's why they contact you early to try and make that claim. Now, on the other side, do I blame them? That's their job to take in premiums, but pay as little as much as possible on claims.
Yeah.
And that's how, sadly, it works.
And if settlements were open forever, if people could come back over and over and over again and say, "Oh, I didn't make a good deal,"
to be
then
fair,
nothing would ever get settled.
To be fair, you have to have some type of agreement, and if you agree, oftentimes it's to your detriment unless you know all the factors, and it's hard to know all the factors that early.
Okay. We got this text message in. Somebody says, if you have video from your car camera or of a traffic infraction, what can be done? Is there a hotline to report it? So like they want citizens arrest, they want to turn somebody in. We're getting more and more cars with video capabilities and more people with video capabilities, and it certainly helps in cases.
You know, I guess you're a witness to a crime. It's, you know, most of the times it's a misdemeanor, but again, if you've got a prosecutor that's going to accept that type of evidence or a report from a citizen, I hadn't heard about it yet. Interesting question, by the way. But I would think you could either email that or contact your either district attorney, whether it be your city or county district attorney, to see if they'd be interested in that type of evidence to, after the fact, go after this infraction. Don't think, well, I don't know. Maybe they do it, maybe they won't. But again, we're in a new time with video everywhere. And you know, let's say something bad happened, we oftentimes get that footage, you know, through discovery if we know that person or was a witness and had video, and we present that in court.
Yeah.
And so that, you know, that information is vital, and oftentimes jurors, they almost expect it to be on video these days, and oftentimes it's not. So you go under the old school fashion of proving your case and putting in witness statements. You know, get accident reconstructionists to diagram the scene. You know, get a lot of science involved, coefficient of friction of tires, how fast were they going at the time of braking. All those factors come in. But again, simplistically, you see a video, it's common sense, and so it really helps prosecute in these cases. But again, we have the burden of proof, and so when a client comes and hires me, and we're making an offensive claim against another person, really their insurance company, the burden of proof is with the plaintiff. And so we have to prove our case to the jury's reasonable satisfaction is the standard under Alabama law for just negligence. And that's if you make a mistake and hit someone. But let's say you're drunk driving, you're speeding, you're acting wanton, and we're asking for punitive damages, not only to compensate. So usually damages are medical bills, pain and suffering for those injuries you've sustained. But if there is wanton conduct, then we will go for what's called punitive damages to either preclude this type of behavior in the future and to put everybody else on notice, to punish the driver and put everybody else on notice that if you're going to drive 100 miles an hour down the parkway with your feet, with your head out the window, the jurors are going to punish that conduct.
Yeah.
And under that, we'd have to have a clear and convincing standard, which is a higher standard.
They're telling us to take a break. We've got questions coming in, including somebody who has texted asking about some repairs made on the car and then the brakes fail. So we're going to be right back answering more of your questions. Call in or text in. We'll be right back.
You're watching Way 31 Law Call. Your rights, your calls, live. Presented by the Tennessee Valley's award-winning personal injury and wrongful death law firm, Timberlake, League & Brooks. Featuring the knowledge and experience of Attorney Michael Timberlake, Attorney Will League, Attorney Heath Brooks, Attorney William Maservi. And hosted by broadcaster and family law attorney Sharon Doviet. This is Way 31 Law Call.
Welcome back to 31 Law Call. Tonight we're taking your calls and questions all about car and truck wrecks. Will League is here from Timberlake, League & Brooks. And on the side, you have some other activities with some weekend warriors that you take care of.
We're putting the law aside for a second. Right there is my teammates from this weekend's Weekend Warriors 7v7 tournament in Huntsville, Alabama. We had a father-son team, and so a lot of those boys are guys we coach. We've got Brandon and Chris Beatty, David Aldridge, Wilsey League, our leader Phil Moyer, Nolan Pfeffer, Billy and Anders Hughes, Joey Moore, Pearson Moyer, not to be outdone by his younger brother Payne, who was very strategic on the sidelines, Caleb Aldridge, Harrison Shiner in goal, John Sanchez, and Hayes Berger. And so,
fantastic.
Sharon, so we played the Weekend Warrior soccer tournament at Joe Davis Stadium. There we are. We had a ball. It was such a dream playing with our sons. And a lot of these kids we actually coached.
Oh, nice.
And so it was just a great weekend. And Rob
What's the
Smith,
age range of these kids?
Right. Some of them just graduating high school, seniors in high school.
Oh, you're getting in the last little bit of time.
We had a ball. And so, Sharon, I heard that you were doubting us and some other doubters out there.
I didn't know if you'd make it through.
I just want to let y'all know that the title comes through the young guns and the old guys. And so, Sharon, you and all the doubters, Rob Smith, Jacob Knopke, Weekend Warrior, just go ahead and put us down for next year.
Well done.
All right.
Well done.
So that's how we'll get back to the law, Sharon. I'm getting excited. I'm getting excited.
I love it. We've got callers waiting. Tonight we're talking about car and truck wrecks. We've got Christy on the line with a question from Huntsville. Hi, Christy. Thanks for calling. What's your question tonight?
Hi, I had a question. I was involved in a hit-and-run accident. Well, I mean, it was just an accident, but the other driver fled the scene.
Okay.
So I wanted to know, what my options were for my insurance coverage and everything like that, since I wasn't able to get their insurance information.
Yeah. What
Christy,
do you do with that?
Do you have full coverage yourself?
Yes.
Okay. All right. The first thing is you want to try and track them down. Is there any evidence? Was there any witnesses? Did anybody get a license plate? Is there any way to make a claim against the other driver who fled the scene? Now, if there were injuries, it could be a felony. It could be a misdemeanor, depending on the nature and extent of the crash and the damage that he or she caused and fled the scene. So that's against the law, number one. So there could be a criminal investigation to find that person. But let's assume that they're gone, nobody saw it, you couldn't get any video from any surrounding cameras, or there were no witnesses. You would be sadly left with a claim against your own insurance company for what's called underinsured motorists. Now remember, comprehensive collision and those things cover you for different things if you need to have your car repaired. But if you incur any type of injury or damage to your vehicle will be under a separate part, but any injury would be under what's called underinsured or uninsured motorist coverage on your own policy. So your insurance company steps in the shoes of that phantom motorist, is what we call it in the law, Sharon, that basically, we could not identify that motorist, so it would be Christie versus, let's say, they had Allstate or State Farm, and so that would be the style of the case. Okay. And up until the amount of coverage that you have, you could make a claim against the phantom motorist and then prove your case just like you would as if the defendant was sitting there, but instead, your insurance company takes their place. And that provides you protection against uninsured motorists, or in this case, where the motorist fled the scene. And so if you cannot find the other motorist, and sometimes you cannot, you're forced to make that claim. Now in theory, insurance companies don't raise your rates because it's a no-fault claim. But I'm not certain I believe that. But that's what we're told.
If they jack up your rates, you can't really do anything about that, can you?
Because it's a contract. It's an arm's length. And so if we could show there was some type of collusion between the carriers, that may be something. But that's outside. That's a tough standard of proof.
Okay, we got this text in. My wife was in an accident recently because the brakes on the car she was driving stopped working right after we picked the car up from being repaired. She rear-ended a car in front of her. She and the other driver and passengers are okay, and the cars are going to be okay. They still filled out a police report. Right. Does that mean that their insurance is going to go up? I mean,
and here's what
these repairs. What can you do about that?
Here's what usually happens in that scenario. there's some damage to the vehicle, both vehicles, no injuries, and now the insurance companies fuss over who caused the wreck because which insurance company is going to have to pay for the damage, and they go to what's called arbitration between them, and they've got basically an agreement that what the arbitrator decides goes. And so what we would have here is, okay, so you're rearing somebody, you're not always at fault, but you have a duty to keep your vehicle under control, maintain a proper lookout, maintain a safe distance between vehicle, and by definition, you rear into the vehicle in front of you, you failed to maintain a safe distance. Okay. Now, what's the defense to that? Under this case, if the brakes truly failed right when they picked them up, then that would be a mechanical defect defense that would be argued by the defense attorney to say, hey, or the insurance company, there was a problem with this vehicle. We could not have known it, even with the exercise of due care. We were a reasonable, prudent person. We picked the vehicle up, and now maybe we turn our attention to the auto shop. We've had several cases where you pick the car up, the wheel comes flying off, causes a wreck, causes injury or damage to someone or some other property, and so if it was faulty repairs, then their insurance company may step in as well. So a third party may be involved in this particular text. So, you know, contact your insurance carrier, and usually they'll fuss on your behalf because they don't want to pay those claims. And so, you know, see where that, you lean on them, because I don't think it's something you would go and talk to a lawyer about unless there was some extenuating circumstances to where you may be personally liable.
Let's talk a little bit about 18-wheeler accidents. I would think those are the cases you try the most. Is that what you said?
You're right.
Because those are really involved. How do you, there are a lot of drivers out there doing a great job, but you also have stories about sleepy drivers or they're driving too much. If you have a case like that, how can you prove what their track record is?
Well, so DOT has set regulations regarding the reset or how much sleep a particular driver who's driving this type of truck has to get. And so they keep driver logs. And also, in addition to how much that, you know, how long, how far, you know, during the time frame that particular driver has driven. Sometimes it's 7 days strength, sometimes it's 8. But you have to have a reset and make sure you get them in the minimum required in between you operating that, and so operating that vehicle. And so we'll look at the logs. Sometimes we'll look at, you know, the cell phone of the particular driver. Was there activity? They claim they went to bed at 7:30. Really, they're up at midnight and they're driving a heavy, heavy truck at 4 a.m. You do that for 3 or 4 times. The science is clear that your reaction time is slower, you know, and it's akin to being a drunk driver. And so those are a lot of the situations we run into is companies just overworking drivers. These guys are trying to do their best, work for their families, you know, and put food on the table. But if they are expected to drive without proper rest, it's putting everyone at risk. And we're seeing a lot of those cases where either inattention, texting and drive, but fatigue driving is on the rise, especially with some of the, you know, with some of the wrecks we've seen here this last summer. You know, so it's tough stuff.
We got a caller that was wanting to ask a question about, they thought they had full coverage, and yet it turns out they were in an accident and they did not have uninsured motorist coverage. So are they going to have to take that against, what happens with something like that? Well,
so here's the general presentation. You go in, hey, I want coverage, and you know the commercial will only pay for what you need. Well, it's you don't need it until you know. And so that's a little bit misleading. The presentation typically is you go into your carrier, hey, I want full coverage, and they say, hey, sign here, sign here. Hey, but you could save $35 a month if you sign here. You don't need this coverage. Well, it's underinsured motorist or uninsured motorist coverage, and that protects you if you're hit by, Christy called earlier about somebody fled the scene. If somebody flees the scene or they don't have coverage, you can make a claim on your own carrier. And they only find out typically they don't have that coverage when they need it, and their agent say, hey, just sign here. So make sure, and under Alabama law, Sharon, you have to specifically waive that coverage in writing. And there's a reason why that extra step is required, because it's so important. And so people just don't know. And when they come in our office, unfortunately, we'll look up the insurance information and find where they did in fact reject. It says I reject UM or underinsured motorist coverage, and it can really lead to some bad stuff.
You encourage family and friends to get that uninsured motorist coverage and get plenty of it.
It's cheap coverage relative to all the other coverages out there. It's not a place to save money. You and your loved ones may need it, and it's kind of like a gun. You'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
Okay, we're going to take a break. Be right back answering more of your questions about car and truck wrecks. Stay with us. If you didn't get your questions answered tonight, here's how to get in touch with Will League with Timberlake League and Brooks. They are personal injury attorneys, so everything from car and truck wrecks to medical malpractice. 256-536-0770 or 800-804-2502. The website is law-injury.com. And if you like them on Facebook, you can learn more about the law that way.
And our very own Sharon Doviet, family law attorney, child custody and divorce, 539-7337, SharonFamilyLaw.com.
We've gotten a text in, and just briefly, the idea was their car got hit and it's being totaled, and he doesn't want it totaled. He wants to keep the car.
You know, a lot of times you got a car, it works, you got no car payment, you're loving life, everything's good. But if the damage is going to be greater than 70%, by law it's got to be totaled, or you got to do a salvage title, and that's a nightmare, believe me.
Okay.
You know, a lot of people want to do that, and so sadly the law kind of clips you in that scenario. Okay. And now you're going to have a car payment and all the bad things.
Thanks for all your calls and questions, and we'll see you next week. Stay safe.